Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
The strangest part? I've started curating my protests, down to the color coordination, even checking the lighting before I show up. Just yesterday, I actually asked someone to retake a photo of me holding my protest sign because my expression didn't match the fierce determination I wanted to project. A couple of years ago, the old me would have found all this a bit cringeworthy. Hi, I'm Lisa. Funny thing is, not that long ago, I was the person scrolling past political posts with barely a glance. I'd see something about an issue, gender equality, climate change, whatever, and think, wow, that's rough, but then keep scrolling. That passive version of me? Sometimes, I barely recognize her now. It feels like a lifetime ago, a different person altogether. And it's almost funny how this all started. It wasn't some big aha moment. It was a simple repost, an infographic about the gender pay gap. A college friend of mine had told me about making 30% less than her male colleagues, and I was stunned. Then I found myself digging into environmental issues, fast fashion, all because of a documentary I watched late one night that left me wide awake, rethinking my choices. These weren't big, radical shifts at first, just small steps in a direction that kept pulling me forward. Each post I shared felt like peeling back another layer of ignorance I'd been wrapped in. And the craziest part? People began paying attention. At first, it was just a handful of friends, maybe some classmates. Then more and more people started following along, saying they appreciated my honesty, my passion, and the fact that I was figuring things out just as they were. Each morning, I'd wake up to DMs from women sharing their own experiences with workplace discrimination or messages from environmental advocates with resources I hadn't even known existed. Somehow, this community started growing, without me even trying. My follower count went from 10,000 to 50,000 to over 100,000 in what felt like a blink. Out of nowhere, brands started sliding into my DMs, offering partnership deals. My voice mattered. Finally, I was actually making a difference, gaining real traction. But then there's Alistair. God, Alistair. He's everything I want in a partner. Kind, thoughtful, successful. He remembers my exact coffee order, surprises me with my favorite vegan takeout, and always seems to know when I just need a hug. But every time I bring up taking a stand on important issues, he gets this look. You know the one. That careful, measured expression that screams, I don't want to rock the boat. And it drives me absolutely crazy. How can someone see everything that's going on in the world and still choose to stay neutral? Last night, we had another one of those conversations in our favorite coffee shop, ironically, which happens to be his shop. I was filming content about corporate responsibility and the need for a radical shift in how businesses operate. And there he was, suggesting I consider different perspectives. Different perspectives? On basic human rights? On environmental destruction? The way he tiptoes around these issues sometimes makes my blood boil. He sat there, stirring his coffee in a reusable cup. At least he's got that going for him. Going on about nuance and complex solutions. Meanwhile, the world is literally on fire. The thing is, my followers get it. They understand that staying moderate in the face of injustice only fuels oppression. Every time I post about taking bold action, my comment section fills with people thanking me for speaking up. You gave me the courage to stand up to my boss, one woman wrote last week. Your content helped me understand why neutrality isn't an option, said another. But Alistair? He still thinks we can solve everything by having civil discussions over coffee and cookies. That's why I made the video. I didn't name him. I'm not that cruel. I just talked about how frustrating it is when people close to us won't acknowledge their privilege and hide behind politeness instead of taking a stand. The comments started pouring in almost immediately. This is so real, one person said. Literally dealing with the same thing with my boyfriend, another wrote. You can't be neutral on a moving train. Each notification felt like a small validation of what I've been feeling. I love Alistair. I really do. But sometimes, love alone isn't enough. Sometimes, you have to choose between staying comfortable and doing what's right. Last night, as I lay in bed scrolling through the responses to my video, I couldn't help but wonder if Alistair and I are just on different tracks now, heading in opposite directions. Maybe that's the price of awakening, losing the people who decide to stay asleep. Let's check from Alistair's side. My brother Mike became a cop because he wanted to help people. That's the lesson we were raised with, service over recognition. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Cleveland, we watched our dad work 2 jobs to keep food on the table while mom volunteered at the local shelter every weekend. They didn't post about it or ask for praise. They just did what needed to be done. So when I opened my coffee shop 5 years ago, I carried that same mindset. I wanted to create a place where everyone feels welcome, to pay my employees fairly, to source ethically. Within a month, I knew every customer's name. I even started a program where people could prepay for coffee for those who couldn't afford it. Small actions, real impact, that's what I believed in. Still do. Lisa used to understand that. We'd spend hours in the shop after closing, sitting on that worn, secondhand leather couch, talking about ways we could make a difference. She'd help me plan community events, suggest local charities to support. Now, though, she calls it performative activism if I donate to local charities without broadcasting it online. She says I'm not doing enough if I'm not out there shouting my beliefs from the rooftops. And I get it. I get why she feels that urgency. The world has real, pressing issues. But when she talks about defunding the police, all I can think of is Mike. He's out there working double shifts in rough neighborhoods, trying to protect people who now view him as the enemy. And when she rails against capitalist oppressors, she doesn't seem to realize she's talking about people like me. Small business owners who barely stayed afloat through COVID by delivering coffee to elderly neighbors, keeping our staff paid even when we were scraping by. I tried talking to her about it last week, right here in the shop. The evening light was streaming through the windows, catching the wisps of steam from our cups, hers filled with the oat milk latte I'd perfected just for her. We spent 2 hours going back and forth, and I shared my worries about how extreme positions can end up alienating potential allies. I even told her about Mrs. Rodriguez, a regular who'd stopped coming in after she saw one of Lisa's Instagram stories. It was about privileged moderates who frequent small businesses instead of supporting street vendors, and Mrs. Rodriguez felt like it targeted people like her. But Lisa? She just stared at her phone, occasionally looking up to tell me I was part of the problem. The Lisa I fell in love with 5 years ago would have at least listened. Then came the video. I was restocking the beans, Arabic roast, carefully sourced from a women's cooperative in Yemen, when my phone started buzzing. Friends were sending me links, asking if I'd seen it. There she was, my girlfriend, talking about moderate enablers who hide behind their privilege. She didn't say my name, but everyone knew. Everyone. And the next morning, I came in to find someone had spray-painted capitalist pig across the shop window. Regular customers have stopped coming in. My social media is flooded with comments calling me a fascist sympathizer. Even the elderly couple who's been here every morning for 5 years sent me a long email saying how disappointed they are in my problematic views because I believe in working within the system to create change. I love Lisa, truly, deeply. But watching her trade our private life for social media approval is like watching someone I love disappear into a character they've created. Each notification seems to pull her further from the person who used to help me close up shop, who knew every regular's name, who understood that real change often happens in those small, quiet moments. And I'm left wondering if there's any way to bring that Lisa back. But for the people who follow my small Instagram page, I added a video. Hey everyone, I want to talk about the push for veganism and its real impact. I get it. Veganism seems like a simple solution for environmental issues, but it's not that straightforward. Did you know that a sudden shift to a vegan diet for millions could severely disrupt our agricultural system? The Food and Agriculture Organization reports that we would need a 70% increase in crop yields to meet the demand. That's a huge challenge and not something that can happen overnight. Also, consider small farmers who rely on livestock for their income. According to the National Farmers Union, 60% of small farms depend on livestock sales. By vilifying these farmers, we risk economic fallout in rural communities. We need to have these discussions with nuance. Holding a phone and shouting about small businesses doesn't help anyone. If we want real change, let's work together, consumers, farmers, and businesses, rather than tearing each other down. Meaningful change takes understanding, not division. I never blamed Lisa but tried to talk some sense into her. It did not work. Meanwhile, the numbers don't lie. Ever since her video about moderate enablers, her following has surged. This morning, she had 3 new brand partnerships in her inbox and an invitation to speak at a climate change conference. Now let's check Lisa's side. 2 podcast invitations came in today. This is what influence looks like, right? This is what making a difference feels like. At least that's what I keep telling myself at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep. The comments under my video haven't slowed. Queen, call them out, one says. We need more brave voices like yours, says another. Finally, someone's saying what needs to be said. Each notification feels like a little victory. But then I roll over in my empty bed, and all those victories suddenly feel hollow. Alistair hasn't slept here in 2 weeks. Yesterday, I started typing out a text to him about a funny thing that happened at the vegan cafe. One of those small moments we used to share. My thumb hovered over the send button for a solid minute before I deleted it. Instead, I posted a story about supporting local vegan businesses, and it got 50,000 views. But somehow, It wasn't as satisfying as hearing Alistair's laugh would have been. The brands love my authenticity. That's what they keep saying in their emails. But is it authentic to spend 45 minutes staging the perfect, casual shot of me looking pensively at my laptop, supposedly working on my next activism project? What's real about rehearsing spontaneous reactions to news stories? Alistair would see right through it. He always did. Now my manager's urging me to be more aggressive with my message. Controversy drives engagement, she says. So, I keep posting increasingly radical takes, each one crafted to stir up debate in the comments. The algorithm eats it up, and my follower count jumps another 10,000. But late at night, I still hear Alistair's voice in my head. Is this really making the world better, or just making it louder? The irony hits hard. I'm coordinating my protest outfits now, checking the lighting before joining rallies. Yesterday, I even asked someone to retake a photo of me holding a sign because my activist face wasn't quite right in the first shot. The old me would have been disgusted. The new me posted it with a filter and got 200,000 likes. Between my sponsored posts about sustainable fashion, wearing clothes that cost more than my old monthly rent, and my calls for systemic change, typed on the latest model iPhone, I feel like I'm playing a role, a character that's somehow more successful than the real Lisa ever was. But success has a strange, hollow taste when you can't share it with the one person who believes in the real you. Alistair used to ground me, listening to my passionate rants over midnight coffee at his shop. He'd challenge me just enough to refine my arguments, not to change my beliefs, but to help me think deeper. Now, I'm surrounded by thousands of voices that echo everything I say back at me with heart emojis and yes, queen comments. No one challenges me. It's all just a chorus, louder than anything I ever imagined. It's easier now, but easier doesn't mean better. Today, I told my followers about the importance of staying true to your values, even if it costs you relationships. It got 50,000 likes. But I didn't tell them how I cried in the bathroom afterward, wondering if these values are still mine or just what my audience expects. The numbers don't lie, but maybe they don't tell the whole truth either. 1 million followers. I should be celebrating, right? Instead, I'm sitting alone in my perfectly curated apartment, surrounded by PR packages from sustainable brands, staring at my phone, which hasn't stopped buzzing with notifications. Everything except the one notification I really want, a text from Alistair. My manager says I'm crushing it. My engagement rates are through the roof. Every brand wants to work with me because I'm authentic. I almost laughed when she said that. Authentic? I spent 2 hours this morning trying to capture the perfect, just woke up shot, looking contemplative with my coffee. Alistair used to bring me actual coffee in bed, messy hair and all. No filters needed. The algorithm loves anger, so I give it anger. The audience wants righteousness, so I give them righteousness. Each post has to be more extreme than the last to keep engagement up. Yesterday, I found myself arguing against small businesses, the same ones I used to champion, like Alistair's, because that's what my followers expect now. My stomach churned as I hit post, but the likes flooded in. The clicks, the comments, the viral outrage. God, the comments. You're such an inspiration. Thank you for being our voice. You helped me find my truth. But what about my truth? When was the last time I posted something because I genuinely believed in it, and not because it would play well with my audience? I honestly can't remember. Last week, I walked past Alistair's coffee shop. Through the window, I saw him teaching a new employee how to use the espresso machine, patient and kind, like he's always been. The same way he tried to be patient with me when I began turning our private conversations into content. There was a new plant wall inside, replacing the one we'd built together. His is thriving. Mine died months ago because I was too busy filming content about sustainability to actually water it. The irony stings. I've become everything I used to criticize. My closet is packed with gifted, sustainable clothes that I'll wear once for a photo. My bathroom counter is crowded with eco-friendly products I promote but rarely use. I preach about authentic living, yet every aspect of my life feels staged for the camera. Last week, my sister tried to reach out. You've changed, she said. I blocked her and posted about setting boundaries with toxic family members. 40,000 likes. Each notification feels like another brick added to the wall I've constructed around myself. The worst part? I can't even cry authentically anymore. When I sense tears welling up, my first instinct is to grab my phone and record it. Raw and real content, my manager would say. But there's nothing raw or real about rehearsed vulnerability. Alistair's video about me is still up. I've watched it 17 times, hoping each time to find something to be angry about, something that proves him wrong. Instead, I only see the truth. I've traded real connections for virtual ones, genuine activism for performative outrage, and meaningful impact for empty influence metrics. Remember that video I posted criticizing Alistair for being too moderate? It's my most successful post to date. The one where I discuss authenticity and standing up for your beliefs. It's now being showcased in marketing seminars. But here's the real irony. Alistair, in his moderate way, has accomplished more genuine good with his small coffee shop than I have with all my viral posts combined. I have 1 million followers, yet I've never felt more alone. My phone keeps buzzing with DMs from strangers calling me their role model. Meanwhile, the people who truly knew me, Alistair, my sister, my old friends from the activism groups, have all faded into the background of my perfectly filtered life. They say fame comes at a price, but they don't mention that the cost is losing a piece of yourself. As Lisa's following skyrocketed, her posts dominated feeds with hashtags and catchy slogans, drawing in attention and engagement. For a time, she was the voice of a generation, a self-proclaimed activist leading the charge for change. But trends, especially in the social media landscape, are notoriously fickle. Over the months, her once viral posts began to lose steam. What was once seen as a bold stand became another noise in the overwhelming cacophony of online activism. Followers who had eagerly engaged with her content started to drift away, disillusioned by the performative nature of it all. Many of them began to question whether her passion was genuine or simply a fad, a trend that had run its course. In contrast, Alistair's coffee shop began to thrive. His community-oriented approach resonated with the locals who craved a genuine connection. People appreciated the warm atmosphere and the sincerity behind his small business. They flocked to his shop not just for coffee, but for the sense of belonging he fostered. Word of mouth grew, bolstered by his commitment to quality and his focus on supporting local farmers and suppliers. As Lisa's followers trickled down, her posts became increasingly desperate, trying to reignite the spark that once drew so many to her cause. But the reality was clear. Her crusade was losing relevance, overshadowed by the depth and authenticity Alistair offered through his work. Where she had been a fleeting trend, he was building something sustainable, a community rooted in real connections and shared values. Ultimately, while Lisa's influence faded, Alistair's business flourished, proving that lasting change often comes from genuine effort rather than mere popularity. As Lisa's Instagram page dwindled, her once thriving platform became a painful reminder of her fall from grace. Likes turned to ghosts, and engagement plummeted, leaving her feeling isolated and lost. The vibrant community she had built crumbled, and the pressure to maintain an image only deepened her despair. Instead of uplifting her, social media felt like a relentless spotlight, magnifying her failures and feeding her insecurities. Each notification that used to spark joy now stung with the weight of unfulfilled expectations. In the midst of her struggle, Lisa crossed paths with Alistair again, but he was no longer the same man she once knew. He had moved on with Nia, a warm and genuine soul who seemed to complement Alistair in a way Lisa never could. Watching them together was a bitter pill to swallow, especially since Nia embodied the authenticity Lisa had desperately sought but struggled to maintain. Their laughter echoed in the spaces where she and Alistair used to dream about making a difference. Meanwhile, Alistair was thriving in his own right. He had launched a successful YouTube documentary channel, where he explored the intersection of old practices and environmental sustainability. His videos showcased how traditional methods of farming, local sourcing, and community engagement not only benefited the earth, but also fostered real connections among people. The authenticity he brought to his content resonated with viewers, drawing in a loyal audience that appreciated his insights and the depth of his work. Lisa often found herself watching Alistair's videos, both captivated and envious. She marveled at how effortlessly he communicated ideas that she had once passionately advocated for, but had since lost her way in. As she observed him sharing genuine stories of impact, she couldn't help but feel a pang of regret for the path she had taken. The contrast between his success and her struggles only deepened her sense of isolation and despair, leading her further into a cycle of self-doubt. In time, Lisa realized that her need for validation and success through social media had not only cost her her relationship with Alistair, but had also stripped her of the very essence of who she was. The more she tried to regain what she had lost, the more distant she became from her true self, leaving her to grapple with her depression in silence. As Alistair's YouTube channel gained traction, he found himself welcoming back his old customers, many of whom had distanced themselves during Lisa's social media crusade. The atmosphere in his coffee shop was once again vibrant, filled with familiar faces and new patrons eager to support a business that championed authenticity over performative activism. People began apologizing for their previous judgments, acknowledging how quickly they had sided with Lisa without understanding the full story. The community rallied around Alistair, and he found comfort in their support. In stark contrast, Lisa's attempts to reclaim her platform were met with hostility. Her new posts were filled with backlash from those who had once followed her, accusing her of hypocrisy and demanding accountability for her previous actions. The weight of public criticism became overwhelming, and the sense of belonging she once felt evaporated. With each notification, the reality of her choices sunk deeper, and she recognized the damage done, not only to herself but to her relationships and her community. Eventually, Lisa made the difficult decision to remove her Instagram page entirely. It felt like a loss, but also a relief. She knew she needed to step back and reassess her life outside the confines of social media validation. Seeking help, she began therapy to cope with her depression and the emotional turmoil that had stemmed from her online persona. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.